You can actually see a lot more detail in the fish, in their coloration and the definition with this lighting. It's something I'd never considered before. Alright everyone, welcome to a new video. We are going to upgrade all of my lighting in all of my aquariums at home, starting off with this Awase Highline 300 featuring my Malawi cichlids. First of all, thank you to Twinstar for supplying their new waterproof lights. I do have experience of these already. I do know they work very well, but it will be interesting to see the difference, not only in how they light up the aquarium for our eyes, but how they perform growing the plants. So the fish seem to be a bit shy at the moment. It might be the lights. I've got a little bit of a studio light going on here, which they're not used to, but I will feed them and I'm sure they'll come out for the food, hopefully. Gosh, they are really shy this morning. That's really interesting. I don't think they're used to me being here. I'm normally watching the aquarium from over there. So this is my Chindongo Saloi aquascape. I've had these fish now for about 5 years, and the mature adults are absolutely massive. I think the biggest is about 7 inches long, and the thickness of its body, the males, is about 1 inch. So absolute brutes. So arguably you could say it's overstocked. I've done a video on this already, but I've tested the nitrates. It's actually lower than my tap water, which indicates that the plant growth is consuming all of that nitrate, which is good. I don't actually dose any liquid fertilizers. I do see a little bit of deficiencies in the Nubius nearest the surface. That's obviously growing the most because it's nearest the light, and we're getting pale growth, some evidence of chlorosis. But I think it looks fine, and I'm not bothered about adding liquid fertilizers if I don't need to. Plenty of algae on the wood, that's okay. I've got a couple of bristle nose in there. It is filtered with 2 big Awase 850 thermos. Obviously over filtered, but we need to do that because of the large fish load. And maintenance is really easy. I just clean the glass, give the gravel a disturb to lift up any excess waste, do a 50% water change, clean the Biomaster pre-filters, and that's it. Feed the fish a couple of times a day. Beautiful aquarium to live with. It's my favourite fish tank that I've ever owned, and I really enjoy the process of keeping these fish in the long term. You really get an emotional attachment to them. You recognise each character, the alpha males, the dominant females, etc. I haven't had any babies for a while, which is fine. I don't need any more fish. And yeah, just a great aquarium. Classic triangular composition. We've got a mixture of wood and rock in here. There is some reluctance to use wood in Malawi cichlid tanks because there's a belief that it lowers the pH and the hardness, but it has no effect in here. I have very hard tap water anyway, and I've got plenty of Sirius stone in here, which is lime-based as well, so that can potentially increase your hardness. The fish love to dig the gravel, move things around a little bit. It is super stable though. I haven't had any rocks fall, thankfully, and I can see this going for another good few years at least. I have had a couple of fish die over the last few months or so, I think just old age. I've only had one actually die, but the other was just so poorly and was getting bullied, so I had to euthanize it really, unfortunately. So let's talk about lighting. Lighting in general. We need lights, of course, so we can see our aquarium, to light up the beautiful fish, to light up the plants, but also to grow the plants. So you can approach lighting from different perspectives. You know, you've got to consider your budget, your personal taste. You know, what aesthetic do you like? Do you prefer a cooler kind of white spectrum, or more of a richer warm white, or really full spectrum to make those colors pop? And depending on your taste and your budget, depends on what kind of light you want to go for. The very, very cheap lights are still very good for growing plants potentially, especially the easier plants, but they might not give you such a rich color rendition. And all the way to the other end, you have full spectrum lighting such as the ADA Solar RGB, Chihiros, Twinstar, etc. So you're looking at the upper price range, and then you've got in sort of middle of the road kind of lighting like the Fluval. Another important consideration is controllability. There's a big kind of trend in having very controllable lighting, so you have full controllability over the spectrum almost. And that has its pros and cons. In my opinion, it's potentially has some disadvantages because as a beginner, you're not sure what spectrum to go for. It might not be the most appropriate for your plants, and actually you might be changing the spectrum a lot to find out what you like, and by doing that the plants haven't got time to adjust to that spectrum, and you might experience poor plant growth, and that's not good for anyone. So I'm actually in favour of a fixed spectrum such as the ADA Solar RGB and the Twin Star, and I'm using Twin Star in all my aquariums now. Grateful for them for supplying their lighting. They're not paying me for this video or paying for me to promote their lights, but they have gifted me the lights, so just full disclosure there. I've been using Twin Star since they came into the market almost 10 years ago now. I think 2015 they launched their first lighting. And I've had great results with it over the years, and that's why I'm using it now exclusively in my home aquariums. We'll talk about the Twin Star lighting in my bigger tank later, because that's really interesting. I was actually using a non-waterproof light under the hood, which is a big no-no, but we'll talk about that later. So the current lighting in here is the Awase Classic LED, which is just white LEDs at 6,500 Kelvin. And as you can see, it looks fine. The greens are great. It's bringing out the yellows and the blues of the fish, no problem. And there's nothing wrong with it. The plants have been growing. There's Anubias, they're very easy. These have been in here for probably about 2 years now. And I'm very happy with their slow and steady growth. The actual photo period, I do have these lights on for 14 hours a day, although I'm only using one tube, which I believe is 18 watts. So that's interesting, and that could be useful numbers for when we do replace it with the new Twin Star. So what I'm going to do is I'll take out the old classic LEDs. I do actually have 4 lamps in here, but I'm only using 1. So we'll take out the units. That's a little bit of a faff because I've got the dry weir. All the electrical cables go down through here into here. So I'll have to untangle the cables, lift the whole unit out, and then replace it with the new one. And the advantages of the new Twin Star over the Awase is that it's full spectrum lighting, so we have actually different coloured LEDs to really give you great colour rendition and arguably better plant growth, because we have peaks in the red and the blue as well as the green to promote photosynthesis. Plants generally need a lot more blue and red in the spectrum to promote photosynthesis. They can use green as well, although they don't use so much green, and that's why we see the green, because it's reflected back at us to our eyes. So I'll change over the lighting now, and then we can do a before and after and see what you think. It'll probably take me a little while to get used to the new colour, because I've literally lived with this light now for 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years. And it might look a little bit weird at first. It might look a little bit weird in the video. I'll try to get the colour temperature on the camera to most accurately match what I see with my eyes. Everyone's going to have a little bit of a different take on that, but I'll do my best to show you what I see, if you know what I mean. So okay, let's change the light over. So just take the hood off. I'll just show you the light as it is right now. There's just one light there. There's actually 4 potential that I could use, but I've only ever used 1 really. So maybe some more for photography or for video. But as you can see, there's 4 cables now going through the dry weir, which I need to unplug and yeah, just remove the whole thing, of course. I did have each LED plugged into its own socket on a 4-way extension lead, and then that extension lead was on a plug-in timer. And I did have the lights coming on at 7 AM in the morning and then off at 9 PM at night, and that is a big photo period. But you know, it was fine. The aquarium is viewed. I do work from home, and my wife works from home most of the time, so it is nice to have, you know, the lights on this tank, because it's the most viewed aquarium in the house, really. One of the advantages of the Twin Star is just this 1 cable, and I do have controllability over the brightness and the photo period. It isn't bad lighting, you know. I think the rendition is nice. It grows the plants, of course. I've been using this light on various aquariums over the years. It's on my therapist's waiting room tank. I'm using one 8-watt LED, the Awase Classic on a Starline 75. That's going really well. There's something to be said for keeping things simple. Okay, so I've unboxed the light, very well packaged. Just to go through the packaging very quickly. It gives you some really interesting specs on the back. I'll overlay the actual information right now, but it tells you how waterproof it is, which is IP67 rating, which basically means it can be submerged underwater for quite a long time. It has 6 types of different colour LEDs, optimised for plant growth, and it has a controller, and it's efficient. Basically, you've got all of your numbers here. Actually, at max power, this is 63 watts. So if we remember that the original classic LEDs was 18 watts, about 4 times as potentially bright. So if I run it on 25%, should give us around about the same brightness, give or take. That's all of the kind of tech spec. And then in the box itself, we've got the actual light unit itself. So waterproof, this is actually like a rubber coating on it, which feels really solid and obviously waterproof, very robust and completely waterproof. This actually spans perfectly the length of my aquarium, and I'll fit that later, of course. But if you did have an aquarium which was longer than this, you have adjustable feet here, so they just simply slot in the sides here. And just to say that these at maximum length do just about fit the Oase Highline 400, but we're missing out on all of this lighting potential here. So you do get dark edges at the end, and so thankfully I do have longer versions of these now, so we'll fit those later. 63 watts, lots of different coloured LEDs, power supply, cable. It does come with a UK adapter for UK customers. The standard is the European plug, which is the 2-pin. And then we have our little controller. These are really handy. This is an inline controller, and you have 3 default photo periods that you can set: 6, 8 or 10 hours. So to do that, to set that, whenever you want to start the photo period, you set your photo period on here. So say that you wanted to start your photo period at 2 p.m, turn your light on at 2 p.m, set your photo period at 2 p.m, and then that will just run for either 6, 8 or 10 hours. And you just press that and it lights up accordingly, whichever you want to do. You have, I think, 6 different levels, I think it's 5, 6 or 7 different levels of brightness, which you adjust with your dimmer. And then you have your regular on or off button. It's very intuitive to use. There is full instructions there, but just have a play around with it. I didn't use these at all. I'm kind of very intuitive. So that's the inline controller, and that just literally fits inline. Super simple. Plug that into there, and then plug your other end into the power supply cable there, and then that's it. And then you do have little blue LEDs which light up depending on if you're on or off or your photo period. Really straightforward, really handy. Also to say that it does do an automatic ramp up and ramp down for 10 minutes at the beginning and the end of the photo period, which is great because you don't want to be startling your fish like you do when you just use a plug-in timer. So we'll fit that now and then we'll see what it looks like. Very exciting. So first of all, let's just get the light unit itself, and you'll see just how easily it spans. So I think we have to go a diagonal first. I don't know if you can see all the hard water marks building up around here, just to show you how hard my water is. There's so much more room now to work in the aquarium. I do actually have 2 of these, but I only need 1 for this aquarium. And then I can slide it forwards and backwards to maintain appropriately, or to light different areas of the tank as I wish. It's an island style, so I'll probably just have it in the centre to light it evenly. And I've actually fitted the controller unit inline, and what my intention is, because I want to run a 14-hour photo period, just have it on the on default mode rather than using the photo period, and then we'll have a look at the dimming settings. So I'll plug that in now and it should come on. It should ramp up slowly if my intuition is correct. There we go. So that should ramp up to 100% over the next 10 minutes. So I'll just let that do its thing, and then I'll just do a time lapse of it ramping up. It probably will be overexposed in the video, but we'll adjust that later. Okay, so there's the light fitted. It's currently on max power, so what I'm going to do is dim it down to around about the same brightness as what I consider we had before. Maximum now, 2, 3. So you can see every time I click it, it steps up and all the way up and then all the way down. I reckon if it's all linear and approximate to the same lumen output as the others in terms of watts per lumen, then if I have it on setting 2 or 3, that should be about the same brightness as before. So hopefully that'll look okay in the video. Good, that was relatively straightforward. Okay, so I'll just hide the timer. Now, as I said, I'm not using the photo period timing built in, I'm using a plug-in timer. So when my lights go off at 9 PM, it won't know to dim, so they'll just go off straight away. That's one disadvantage of using a plug-in timer. But when the timer comes on in the morning at 7 AM, it should ramp up slowly, so that's beneficial. So I'll just tuck this into the dry weir. Okay, so that is the lighting upgraded now on the Highline 300. I really like it actually. There is a lot more popping of the colours, and the fish, the yellow fish in particular, are much more of a deeper yellow, almost like an orange. They're less kind of washed out. They're like a pale yellow, the others were before. You can actually see a lot more detail in the fish, in their coloration and the definition with this lighting. It's something I'd never considered before. It's obviously saturating the colour more, but actually giving you more to see. It's really interesting. It's like watching a 4K TV versus modern 4K TV versus an old style cathode ray tube TV. It's interesting, isn't it? We have this desire to always kind of improve aesthetically what we're living with or what we're seeing, or even ourselves, dressing up, makeup, using Photoshop on photos. And I guess when adding a kind of more modern LED light is leaning into that kind of concept. But I think it's be careful not to take it too far, because it becomes less real. Because I'm sure in nature the colours aren't so intense as what we see here. I don't know. I've not seen these guys in nature, but I very much doubt they are so intense. It's like ramping up the saturation. When you edit a photo in Photoshop or on your phone, Instagram, whatever you're using, whatever kind of software or platform you're on, there's an ability to add a filter or adjust the different levels, and that's what we're doing in real time by adding this light. But it is very attractive, I have to say, and I completely get it. Would I adjust it if I had an adjustable bars like on the Chihiros app? What setting would I use? That's interesting, isn't it? If you've got the option, what do you go for? I think there's actually an element of freedom paradoxically, in not having a choice. You're just almost forced to use the spectrum that's supplied. And you adapt to that yourself as the viewer, as the consumer, and the plants adapt to that. And then that's one less variable to consider with your plant growing techniques. Anyway, just something to think about. Right, let's move over to the other tanks.